Yugi Bros!
What's up, my Yugi Bros? It's Connor, and today all the skills for Twisted Nightmares and Match of Millennium have been revealed. Before we begin, though, please remember to comment, like, and subscribe. As always, please click that notification bell to get all of our latest updates. Also, a very quick shout out to Konjik on Dueling Book. I totally stole his 8 skill card picture for my thumbnail from Dueling Book. So thank you for that. And without further ado, let's begin the video, shall we? Kicking it off, we have 2 new Yugi skills, Ritual of Black Mastery and Night of Legend. Ritual of Black Mastery states activate this skill during your main phase, while you control Blackluster Soldier or Magician of Black Chaos that you ritual summoned this turn. While you control Blackluster Soldier, it cannot be destroyed by your opponent's skill. Also, once per turn, if your opponent activates a trap card, draw 1 card immediately after it resolves. The other effect is while you control Magician of Black Chaos, it cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. Also, if your Magician of Black Chaos destroys a monster by battle, add 1 spell card from your graveyard to your hand. First thing that stands out to me here is it kind of gives Magician of Black Chaos the Demok effect, which is its effective version counterpart. BLS, on the other hand, has a slightly different effect than its effect counterpart. It's unaffected by your opponent's skill and draws a card if your opponent activates a trap. That's very interesting. Magician of Black Chaos, in addition, cannot be destroyed by your opponent's spell effects. This is interesting because I'm surprised both of them aren't cannot be destroyed by the same thing. BLS toggles with skill, whereas Magician of Black Chaos toggles with spell effects. Interestingly enough, though, you probably could side in one or the other because they're both ritual decks and they're both level 8. So depending on what your opponent's playing, whether their skill is very powerful to destroy you or their spells are pretty powerful to destroy you, you could toggle between Magician of Black Chaos and BLS to try to play around your opponent the right way. So I find this skill to be very interesting. But moving on to the second one, Night of Legend. Activate this skill during your main phase. Each turn, 1 Gaia the Fierce Knight you normal summon can be summoned without tributing. That's pretty cool. Apply the following skills while you control a Gaia the Fierce Knight monster or a Gaia the Dragon Champion monster. If it attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage. Once per turn, if it inflicted battle damage with this skill, draw 2 cards, then discard 1 card. That's very good. You cannot activate set cards in the spell and trap zone. So the turn you use the skill, the downside is you can't activate set cards in spell and trap zones. However, you get to do piercing with either your Gaia the Fierce Knight or your Gaia the Dragon Champion. Keep in mind, it actually says Gaia the Fierce Knight monster, so you can use something like charging Gaia the Fierce Knight as well with this effect. The first effect, where you get to normal summon it without tributing, has to be Gaia the Fierce Knight, but the piercing damage and the you cannot set things works with any Gaia the Fierce Knight monster and any Gaia the Dragon Champion monster, for that note. The next 2 skills are both Pegasus. They are called Thousand Eyes Spell and Toon Mayhem. Thousand Eyes Spell says activate this skill during your main phase. Once per turn, you can discard 1 card and use one of the following skills, but you cannot conduct your battle phase this turn. Ritual summon 1 relinquished from your hand by tributing a monster from your hand or field whose level is 1 or more. Also flip this card over. Or fusion summon 1000 Eyes Restrict from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as fusion material. Also flip this card over. This is very interesting. So we already had ways to ritual summon a relinquished a little bit easier with the releases of Senju, the Thousand Hands, and Sonic Bird. And then we also got the ritual sneak peek skill, if I remember correctly, which kind of let us do it one-sided with relinquished, I believe. But this not only gives us access to summoning relinquish without using the ritual spell, it also gives us access to fusion summon the Thousand Eyes Restrict that is new to speed duels in this starter deck. So this is very interesting. You can't conduct your battle phase the turn you use one of these 2 skills, but I think that justifies the fact that you get to absorb something and either bring out Relinquish or its stronger counterpart, Thousand Eyes Restrict. The other skill is called Toon Mayhem. This is probably the simplest of the skills in the deck. It says the first time each Toon World in your spell and trap zone would be destroyed each turn, it is not destroyed. So it kind of gives your Toon World a bit of a Seal of Orichalcos effect, where the first time it would be destroyed each turn, it's not, which is really good. Toons kind of needed that. I kind of wish the skill had another effect. Every other skill in this seems to do two things, or if it does one thing, it's very strong. And while this isn't terrible for Toons, I kind of just wish it gave Toons a little bit more love. That's the deck that already struggles as it is. Maybe allow one Toon monster to attack on the turn it's summoned. I don't know, that might be a bit much. Maybe at a life point cost or something. Either way, this is cool. I don't think this puts Toons in the limelight, but I could be wrong. Also, something to quickly mention, it only affects Toon World in your spell and trap zone. So if we ever got something like Toon Kingdom in the future that treats itself as Toon World, it would be in the field spell zone. Unfortunately, this effect of this skill would not apply to that. So just something to keep in mind maybe for future Speed Duel cards. The next two skill cards from Twisted Nightmares are two Bakura, Yami Bakura I should say, skills called Inner Conflict and Into the Darkness Below. I like the names of both of those. Let's read them. Inner Conflict says activate this skill during your main phase. Once per duel, you can pay half your life points and take control of one monster your opponent controls until the end phase, but it cannot attack directly this turn. Whoa, I think this is really good. Yes, it's once per duel, but most skills up to this point have been once or twice per duel. You pay half your life points to take control of any monster your opponent controls until the end of the turn. Yeah, it can't attack directly, but it can still attack an opponent's monster, and I think that's where this card shines the most. Obviously, in the future, you might be able to do more things. If we ever get Synchros or XYZs or something like that, you could also fuse with it. You never know. But as of right now, taking something for free at the cost of half your life points means this card is always live, and this card will probably be most effective late game when they have, let's say, two monsters on the field. One is clearly stronger than the other one. You take the stronger one to punch over the weaker one, and hopefully you have one other or two other monsters on the field to then swing for game. This doesn't stop you from doing that. It only stops you from having the monster you take control of attack your opponent directly. And paying half your life points, like I said, any point in the duel, you could have 50 life points, pay 25, take your opponent's big monster, run over their slightly weaker monster, and then swing for game. This is huge. I think this card will have a huge impact on Speed Duels. This definitely shifts control of a game for sure. I can't wait to see this take center stage in Speed Duels. It's actually quite a scary card. The other one, Into the Darkness Below, says activate the skill during your main phase. Once per turn, you can discard one normal fiend monster, then use one of the following skills. Either draw one card, also flip this card over, or if you have 4 or more fiend normal monsters with different names in your graveyard, add one monster from your deck to your hand, also flip this card over. So this is interesting. I'm not super psyched that it has to be with normal fiend monsters, but the second effect I feel justifies that. The first effect, however, not so much. We got a lot of fiends in Twisted Nightmares that I thought were really cool and you could definitely build a deck around, but most of them are effect monsters. This skill doesn't work with effect monsters. You only get the draw by discarding a normal fiend. You only get to add any monster from deck to hand by having 4 or more different fiend normal monsters in your graveyard. I'm kind of at a letdown, but I definitely want to see this in action before I make my final judgment. The draw effect is solid, but the add any monster from your deck to your hand could be game-changing. Dark Necrofear, as we know, is in this deck. Lava Golem, as we know, is in this deck, but it doesn't even have to be a fiend monster. You can add any one monster from your deck to your hand. Sure, you have to load your grave with different normal fiend monsters, so that will hinder your deck. You can't just throw this card in literally anything. The deck kind of has to be a dedicated deck, probably with mostly fiends. But definitely want to see where people take this before I make final judgments. I think the card is actually pretty cool. And finally, our last two skills are Yami Merrick, called Shadow Reborn and Twisted Personality. Shadow Reborn says activate this skill during your main phase. Once per duel, you can pay half your life points and special summon one monster from either graveyard, but your opponent takes no battle damage this turn. So, at the cost of half your life points during your main phase, once per duel, you can Monster Reborn anything. Your opponent takes no battle damage. I feel that's justified. You can take anything, guys. Speed Duels hasn't had that type of versatility yet. This is gonna be big, and I can't wait to see. This is definitely, if you don't main this, you definitely side this skill. This brings a whole new meaning to siding. This and that other Bakura card that takes control of things, both of them I think will be skills that if you're not maining, you're definitely siding, because being able to either reborn anything at the cost of half your life means it's always live, or take control of anything for half your life is always alive. Both of these are super justified that they're once per duel. I think both of them are super strong, and I can't wait to see what people do with this. But man, a Monster Reborn in Speed Duels, and it's a skill, so you don't have to top deck or draw into this thing. You always have this at your disposal. Sure, you have to pay half your life and your opponent takes no further battle damage, but who cares? You can shift games with a Monster Reborn effect in Speed Duels, of all things. I can't wait to see what we can do with this card. And the final card, Twisted Personality, says each time a player loses life points, place one counter on this card, max 3. Once per turn during your main phase, you can use one of the following skills. Either you remove 2 counters from this card, then discard one random card from your opponent's hand, or you remove 3 counters from this card, then destroy one face-up card your opponent controls. Both of those effects are solid. I'm actually really interested. Every time a player loses life points, so you, your opponent, doesn't matter, every single time they lose life, and it doesn't specify, so it can be by battle card effect or whatever, you put a counter on this. And then you either discard a card from your opponent's hand, or you destroy one face-up card your opponent controls. Burn can definitely play with this card, and I feel to an astonishingly scary level that it will take full advantage of this card. But either way, I think this card's still really good in anything. But definitely, if you're doing more damage by other means, you definitely can get an advantage on this card really quickly. So this is really cool. I think all of these skills are really cool. Toon Mayhem is the only one I think is very underwhelming, but I could be wrong. I guess we'll wait and see what people can do with tunes. But other than that, guys, what did you think? Do you like, do you love, do you hate these skills? Tell me in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I think we have definitely some very strong skills going into the next format, and I can't wait to see the possibilities people lay out with this stuff. All Dueling Book needs to do is find a reliable way to side skills without throwing, custom cards as skills into your deck. And oh my god, I think we'd be off to the races at that point. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Yugi Bros out.